Hey, welcome to Stone Soup Poetry, everybody. Yes, I always have this energy, and I'm really pleased with tonight's turnout. It is it's a great sign that I made the right choice in featuring tonight's feature. We can give a virtual round of applause to Tony Brown, who will be going on after part of the open mic. I suspect there'll be other people joining, and Tony Brown has been he was my first choice that I ended up choosing towards the end of the year because I wanted to make sure that the system was, more or less trouble free, and two, I wanted to wait during a certain time. And it seems that right after the election was the way to go. Although if I was smarter, I would have done it beforehand. There were a lot of people who I had asked to feature before the election night. And a lot of people said no because they didn't know what they wanted to say for election night. And I'm not saying that as a judgment call because I could not write for about a week and a half before the election night. Nothing except my usual exercise stuff. And I was afraid to, as if I was going to jinx something. So a lot of people had themselves in knots. A lot of people were just waiting for the results. But the one person I figured would be able to be on point and say whatever he wanted right from the get-go, regardless of who won, would be Tony, which it makes him the perfect candidate to not only kick off the last of the features for 2020, but also help sign off the year. And we're all looking forward to that, I am sure. So as we say goodbye to the dumpster fire, let us celebrate the open mic for Stone Soup, which has been going online since early April, May. I appreciate everyone who's been coming by to support this, the regulars, the people who just drop in. You're all that makes this go, keep on going, keeps my world going around and around as I go from home to work, and back again ceaselessly with nowhere else to go except this world here, and it's enough for me. So for those of you who have never been here before, we try to do the open mic before the feature, and usually it's a smaller open mic. I suspect it might be larger. If there's anyone who needs to be on the first half of the open mic, let me know. I'm not 100% sure we need a first half, but to let me know that ahead of time, because I'd hate to be in the middle of the open mic at 7:45 and all of a sudden you say gotta go. So type and let yourself be known. And James, is Jan going to be reading tonight? Awesome. I will rename you accordingly, and we can say hello to the people who are not joining us by video. I'll unmute them later for their turn. There's Nancy Dotson, and there is Carol Weston. In fact, the wonderful Carol Weston, who I've been able to keep on the open mic and help her voice be heard. She's actually been taking the online world by storm just by phone, thanks to her online friends here, thanks to people like Nancy Dotson, and also thanks to people like Bridget Eileen and Suzanne Mercury, who featured her in a very prominent spot during the Boston Poetry Marathon this past summer. With all that said, enough of the rambling introductions to the night. Let's do the rambling introductions to the open micers, and we're going to start with the first person I saw come in tonight. Let's welcome up Bill Lewis. And just one added note, with the way my Zoom works, I can mute you, but I can't really unmute you, so I can only ask to unmute. So when it's your turn, just be sure to do that. And Bill, you're on.
You certainly must admit that it would be weird if you could unmute me or turn my camera on, because I might be, changing my underwear or something. If you came in and turned your camera on, I should be enormously upset. Therefore, I love you, Chad, but there's a little bit of peeping Tom coming out of this. I don't know. Most of the time I'm doing something that's like all political and opinionated and all that stuff. And every now and then I don't have to do the same thing all the time. Silence. The silent wind or perhaps the weariness of the branches, suffered to bring forth a small avalanche. An avalanche or just a mist of snowflakes that had paused upon the top pine tree for a moment. It had no sound, no weight, no substance. It didn't even fall. It floated. Not a minute's walk from my sanctuary lay the road, black, glistening, silent. Should I spin around? Should I constantly spin around? I should certainly be lost in an instant. It is only silence, the snow, the trees, and me. A whirlwind of white engulfs me, blinds me with its sparkles, then floats away as if it had never been. Idaho, a road of winter, trees and snow and me. And Robert Frost, he must have passed this way to write his poems of horses, snows, and sleigh. It is beautiful but cold, so cold. I need the road. I need its safety. I need a car and a gentle driver and a hitch to somewhere warmer. Silence is beautiful for a moment.
Thank you very much, Bill. And we're going to bring it over now to Mr. John Stickney. He's been one of our regulars for a while now. Good to have him back. Hi, John.
Hey, thanks, Chad. With Che in Slumberland, I'm tired of sleeping with a loaded gun, the extra cartridges stabbing with each roll. On our bellies in the elephant grass, it wanders like bamboo, up my nose, into my ears. The fatigue green pillow case and field camouflage sheets stained with sweat, as if held under an arm during a warm day's forced march. Bugs drone, bite, drone some more. Your beret, on the bedpost, a flaccid flag for a country where legends snore and scratch their genitals while they sleep. When awake, venceremos, you say, soft in your lullaby Spanish, venceremos. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. And we're going to bring ourselves to third person on the open mic. Let's welcome up Mary Jennings. Looks like you need to unmute yourself, Mary. You're not unmuted. There you go.
Forgot. Okay, I'm going to read a series of cinquains that are all moot points. Work smart is a moot point. Work hard to show your worth. I will do the thinking for you. I'm boss. Teamwork is the moot point. Divide and conquer rules. Bow before the golden child. Favored. No fear is a moot point. We were only joking when we said you were safe to vent. Warning. Life-work balance is a moot point here. Keep the work. Leave your life in oblivion. Buck up. Human is a moot point. No more lame excuses why you can't be perfect like me. Reproach. Thank you.
Mary. And up next, I hope he's, yes, he is back from his temporary exile from the camera. Let's welcome up Mr. C.C. Ashagra. Don't forget, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, yeah, here we are. Okay. Yeah, my exile was I was eating. I needed to come home, set up, turn on, and eat. So
Currently exiled with a sandwich. That's why my video is off. But go on.
I've eaten live before just to sort of make it like break the rules and don't die. No one's going to die. I've been writing a lot of little tiny things. So I'm going to read a tiny thing and then something else. You cannot escape an invisible cage, complicated by the prison of survival. With your ego of freedom beyond one cage and still locked away within the same prison system that contains it. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and I just want to say that I'm grateful for anybody who isn't towing the company line of the national narrative of what is or isn't happening and is willing to at least speak their mind and risk sounding human rather than safe with the narrative of contemporary fears. That said, this has nothing to do with that. A while back, I wrote the very first time a series of poems where it was a structure. And the structure was, if I had to take a line, the first half of the line, the second half of the line, next line, first half, second half, next line. The second half and the first half could stand alone, or it could run, and it just did that whole thing. And for some reason, I got away with about 40 poems and never edited it. But this was number one. Functionalism number one. It all happens while you sleep and while your cells are at work in harmony with the wonders of your mind opening, cogs of spiritual realities, churning you to pulse and sweat through pores of being. Deep within, the heart works still, while the true functionality beats your being a life long through every wake's crest and fall into the hardware of believing, always reprogramming itself to escape into the same mortal questions about bones at play with the dangerous forever shapes of aging parts while waking, running, sitting, standing, and falling into muscular memory, tombs of truths, dying like sunsets, pretending they are not sunrises too. Beautiful to ever know love, spinning around a sun that burns the brain of poetry, painting the shell of your skin with pigments of humor's colors, covering all the world you sleep on. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Thank you very much, CC. And with
I
that,
can't take credit. That's from Warner Brothers, the ending.
I kind of got that. But
Well, you never know. Copyright, it might get blocked now.
hopefully not. Let's go next to Deanna.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
This is an untitled, very short piece. The wild yam sparkles, a jewel between her limbs, heaving and thrusting. He's at her side, prodding her on to breathe, breathe, taking in full air with her, as if he knew how she felt. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Deanna. And now let's bring us to the next person on the open mic. This person came out with a new collection recently. The sequel to his one of my favorite books, The Joe Poems. Let's welcome up John Roche.
Thank you, Chad. Yeah, we did. Speaking of the Joe poems, we did a fun reading with some of my friends reading their own Joe poems a couple weeks ago.
They're fun to do.
Yeah. And it's at the Jules Poetry Playhouse page on Facebook, in case anyone wants to check it out. Okay, so these are the first few cinquains from a series that's supposed to go from Thanksgiving to Inauguration Day,
Yes.
an Advent wreath of cinquains, or cinquains, however you pronounce it. Okay, first one. Supreme Court rules religious bakers may bake a COVID cake. Second, Diaper Don trends on Twitter. He whinges and whines, loses suit after suit bigly. Next, the Bidens get a first cat to join their first dogs while Trump wags the dog. Will Iran bite back or bide its time? Next is 51 days out. Brexit before Trump exit. Inquiring minds prefer royals gossip. The 50-day mark. Joe Biden reads his daily intel briefing, consults with experts, names cabinet and advisor picks, bides his time, prays there'll be something left to govern. And today's 49 days out. Year one was pay to play. Year two was pay the mistress. Year three was quid pro quo. Year four was COVID profiteering and bribes for pardons. The Swamp King is stunningly consistent. So I'm going to try to keep that going for another 49 days. Thanks all.
Good luck. Might be too much. I speak from experience. Good God. I usually do. I've been doing those erasure or cut up poems based on his speeches. And at first I thought I could take a break after the last one I'm working on. Then I just realized he came out with this 46-minute tape crying persecution. I'm like, oh God, now I got another one. How can I?
Yeah, I've been following those. Yeah.
But thank you so much, and good luck with the book. I'm definitely going to grab a copy. And up next, and I just need a second to unmute her because I have to do it from my end. I have it on good authority that there's some people who want to collect her poems in a book, more than one group of people, and I hope it happens very soon. Let's welcome up Carol Weston. Give me 1 second. Oh, I see what happened. You're not on yet, Carol. Give me 1 second. You're up now, Carol. Awesome.
Okay, I'm reading some more from Peacefire, and I don't know if I mentioned 100 lines of it were published in Bomb magazine, and Garrett Lansing would ask me every year what happened to that poem until finally he gave it to his friend, a brilliant madman, David Rattray. And David Rattray said, I'm going to butcher it. And he did, but he did it skillfully. Okay, anyway, I cannot hide. My light is bursting through my chrysalis, and I who could not speak or shake their hands am walking out to conquer the world and bring it back, to water it with love. To conquer the world would be to liberate every human spirit into the garden of their desire until the flowers that grow there become the instruments that play the music of the spheres. I cannot get up. The message is pressing me into the power of this seat. Gravity is in league with my continuance. My message is a fire I have to keep alive, I never could learn how to arrange the logs, to set the fire in pouring rain, the hungry campers waiting. Sing. The voice box still contains the treasures put there in the beginning. No hand can hold them back. The swan muse swims against the score. Its wing brushes the lyre, the wind harp of the mountain, and the sound comes from all around, like the wind of God, blowing from every degree of the dark-rimmed, light-rimmed horizon. I cannot sleep. Some force propels my hand to write. That's all, thanks.
Thank you very much, Carol. And up next, we have another friend by phone who can unmute herself just as a reminder by pressing *6. And it's a great pleasure to welcome up Carol's friend and ours, Nancy Dodson.
Cold and chilly. It is cool, chilly wind and weather. The dogs come in right away. It's not my turn to go out. First, it will kill the plants. House plants are bettered ones. Fear of a kill makes me bring them in tonight. Frost kill or what? Will they survive? I doubt it.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And I have to apologize. I don't like breaking up the open mic, but I did realize I made a mistake in that I actually signed up someone who I wasn't sure was going to be on. Anytime I see a person who's a poet, I just automatically add their list to the name to the open mic. I didn't add Audrey. You don't add high school friends to the open mic. Not without asking. And that's a dangerous thing. But on the other hand, Mr. Mike McGee, I was wondering if you'd be interested in joining, because I already put you are down on the list.
Before Mike starts, you might want to ask Audrey. Audrey is a storyteller, so she might actually have something.
Well, Audrey, if you're interested, I can definitely put you down.
It's tempting, but I was not prepared, so I probably should have. Thanks, Tony, for speaking up. But yeah, I'll let it slide tonight.
If you change your mind, let us know.
I'd be happy to read something.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Mike McGee.
Let me give me 1 second. I think I'm less prepared than I wasn't expecting to read anything until this very second. So maybe I'll just do something memorized. I think that'll probably be the easiest. Sorry, Tony. An oldie but a goodie. This is a poem I wrote in 1999 while working the graveyard shift. I have been told that in 1500s England, they buried people prematurely due to a comatose state caused by drinking alcohol from lead and pewter cups. To eradicate these awful mistakes and to prevent many wrongful deaths, they hired men to sit in the cemeteries with lanterns and shovels to listen for ringing bells. These bells were tied to twine, and the twine was run underground to the wrists of the deceased. If the person awoke inside their coffin and scrambled for escape, their bell would sound 6 feet above, and the diggers would start digging. Hence, those buried alive were saved by the bell, and the diggers' work became known as the first graveyard shift. The only people at that time willing to work in the dark and sleep during the day. So, I'm at my new graveyard job at the mall. I stock toys for the kiddies at Christmas time. I work in the dark like Quasimodo because they would just never hire me for a daylight position. I guess I just don't appeal to their regular shoppers. And I definitely don't appeal to the kind of people that stop by our store after spending a few grand at Nordstrom. Come see the big hairy guy. Come one, come all, come down to the mall, see for yourself this big giant elf. I cannot dance for $1, and I will not give up my dreams for a job. I work in the dark to enjoy the sun. I plan my life during my 10-minute breaks while the nocturnal animals play in the empty parking garage amongst littered shopping bags, receipts, and price tags. As the world sleeps, dreaming of designer clothes, bottled water, and a Beverly Hills lifestyle, I debate with myself whether or not I have time to suck down one more cigarette. And if you can see the blue in this collar, then you must know that I've learned quite well just how to differentiate between the daywalkers and those that roam the night. I prefer the light of the moon over your basic fluorescent office fixture. The kind of light that assumes a distrust between you and your boss. The kind of light that peeks into and around every corner. Those are the lights the stores use at malls to scare away the shoplifters. And those are the lights they shut off when the graveyard shift punches in. There's something missing in the morning. But I just want to get to the point where at night, I am who I am in the daytime, who I can be in the morning. And in the daytime, customers miss out on what we can smell under the omniscience that is the night walker. And here I am forgetting most of this poem. So I'm gonna stop because I can't remember it. So forgive me, but I will say this, thank you. And yeah, you get the point.
Every audience is new. I couldn't tell if you flubbed a line.
No, I know. Like the last fifth of that was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and make things up as I go.
Sweet.
Why not?
It's always good to hear a third shift poem. That was like a genre in and of itself at the Cantab and elsewhere.
Oh gosh, yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I moved to Worcester. Was they got me. They understood.
Very sweet. That was great. And I'm going to bring it to next. It looks like we might be able to do everybody. Let's bring up next Jan Rowe. Jan, are you available?
I am.
Yep.
This is not poetry. This is just something I wrote on the Red Line to Central Square, back today to Ashmont. Betsy DeVoe. DeVoe, the name means the fox. Betsy DeVoe, our Secretary of Education. Betsy DeVoe, the owner of too many yachts to keep track of. She says erasing student debt would be truly insidious. What? The President of the United States can have 5 or 6 bankruptcies, and I can't have even one? Besides, Betsy's college debt collection business would be affected adversely. And this other thing I jotted down that I heard, banks must lend to groups needing money to drill for oil in the Arctic, or the Trump regime will punish that bank. And I just have a quote from my writing group on Tuesdays, the Black Seed at the Cathedral of St. Paul, Park Street, James Parker group. He does prompts in a quote. This is Woodhouse, P.G. Woodhouse. I always strive, when I can, to spread sweetness and light. There have been several complaints about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Black Seeds is a growing group located out of St. Paul's, which for a long time was, for about a little over a year, was headquarters to Snowsuit Poetry. That was the big church right outside, just almost directly across from the Park Street Tea Stop. And people from Cambridge and Somerville still wouldn't come. I forgot the wheelbarrow, but I forgot the limo to help them cross the street. But not Carol, she was there, and James and Jan were instrumental in having Snowsuit there and helping them get a home when we didn't have one after the coffee shop closed on us, which was right after the Out of the Blue. Memories. We have up next. We got 2 people to go on. We'll have James Van Looy be our penultimate closer, and just in case there is someone who comes in late and wants to participate, I think we got everyone who wants to be the first out of the way. But we're gonna have some music to close off the first half of the open mic. But before that, let's go to past Snowsuit feature editor, writer, poet, author, publisher, Mr. Jeff Taylor.
Thank you, Chad.
I seem to have an ability to call on people when they're just about to hit the bathroom and grab a drink. I apologize.
No. I got up because my kids were being extra loud in the background, and I was trying to get them to not be so loud.
I hate to sound like an oldie, but is that Jeff from way back at TT the Bears days?
Yes, it is, CC. Good to see you.
God, it's been about 4 decades.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, 90.
Always good to see familiar faces. Yeah.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you. We'll look forward to hearing you. Let me shut up.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm working on putting together a new book. I'm kind of going through what the list is going to be. I'm going to submit to a contest. See how that goes. But here's one from that set. It's called Modus Operandi. When I asked Ari to marry me, she was mid-shit thumbing through a stack of bills. When we told my cousin, she said, to make it official, you have to pick an addiction. Ari responded, gambling, like it had been on her mind already. The night before I proposed, I had a dream. Sitting in a high school gymnasium, the voice of God echoing from behind me, the question I was afraid it would ask. If a shipper smashed a crate of vases on the way into a houseware store, did they ever exist? I've been napping all weekend trying to get back to the dream so I could ask if they got a signature before unloading. But you can't expect that type of confirmation from a dream. That's that one. Can I do another one?
Definitely.
All right. We'll go with this one here. All right. This one's called Sparked. When my cousin Ronnie met his wife Sarah, he didn't know my friends and I received commendations from the city for rescuing her from a menacing man who came through her door. Sarah gave me more credit than I deserved. I was just there. When we first heard her screaming, we had sparked the joint, but hadn't quite taken the first hit yet. It wasn't until later we were told the guy who attacked her was a Vietnam vet having a flashback. Kari and Nolan met him head on. When it was over, the cops showed up to do that thing where they slam a person's head into the door jamb as they push the guy into the car, saying, "We've got it from here." Sarah bought us movie passes as a thank you. I took mushrooms and watched Strange Days by myself. That's that one.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chad. I was gonna say I got one more short one I had lined up, or is that too many?
Oh, you got a short one, so the last two were short. So go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This one's called The Legend of the Fruity Fairy. One April Fool's Day, cops showed up for free pizza at the shop Ari worked at, like they did every day. They told her how that morning a cop from their precinct burst in a tirade because someone taped to his door a sandwich bag containing one Fruit Loop and a note that read, "From the Fruity Fairy." The cops went on to tell Ari how everyone at the station made fun of that cop for being gay, even though they knew he wasn't, just because of how mad he got about them saying it. The very macho cop was convinced he had been left the note as a joke, but the funnier joke is that Ari is the one who wrote the note. Funnier still, Ari, Nolan, and I didn't just creep up his stairs with the bags. We left cereal and regards at every house in the 10-block grid we mapped using neighborhood familiarity and supply count as criteria. After we completed our mission, Ari, Nolan, and I stood in the middle of Bradford Street, smoking one of the 3 consecutive bowlfuls we packed into an oversized pipe to celebrate our April Fool's Day victory, when the first call started coming into the dispatcher. Every cop car in the city spent the morning looking for us. Even as more calls of the mysterious bags came into dispatch, The very macho cop held on to the belief that his brothers in blue were mocking him. The cops told Ari they finally convinced the macho cop it wasn't them, because on the note, fairy was spelled with an E, and somehow made sense to the macho cop that all cops know fairy isn't spelled with an E. Thanks.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jeff. Up next, right before our feature, this musician has been a part of many poetry events and many events in general throughout Boston. I started by calling him the Pulse of Stone Soup, but really he's almost the pulse of Boston with everything he's involved with in Boston and all around. Whether it's being at Stone Soup, helping other people out on the open mic, or doing music for Boston's Ladies of Wicked Wrestling, which I hope someday to actually see. You know, this man coming up is the key to help make all this stuff work, and hopefully the key to help accomplishing my bucket list dream of becoming a heel manager on a wrestling show. Let's welcome up Ethan Mackler. Uh-oh, Ethan, it looks like for some reason, even though it says you're not muted, it looks like you're mute. We can't hear you. Can you say something now, Ethan? Uh-oh. Might have a connection issue, sir. Oh, I heard something there.
Maybe go to your audio settings. The little caret next to the mute bottom thing, you know it, right?
Oh, this is work before.
How's this?
Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh,
You're using a
there you
cell.
go.
I remember. Ethan uses cell.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Ethan Mackler.
All right. This is a piece without any words. May it cleanse the palate from what we have already heard. As we prepare for Tony Brown, if you could take a few moments and listen to the sound. Back to you, Chad.
Thank you, Ethan. If I even got like 5 seconds of Jeff Taylor doing his dance for the video.
I've seen the dance before. Yes.
Then, well, if I caught it now, I at least know I did I served 2020 well. So thanks again, sir. And let's see. It is time now to introduce the feature. Normally we would do 2 round robins if there was no feature, but everyone gets a night off of actually no one has to do any extra work outside of one open mic slot, and we can all kick back and have the feature earn his donations. And I do urge you to donate to Tony, who I hope will leave his information, and I'll link to his Patreon and other places where you would be able to donate. Tony is one of the few brave people, I think of 3, I can count them on one hand and still have enough to do like the British flip off, that of people who are poets who are brave enough to do Patreon pages. I've created Patreon. Patreon is a website where you can basically have people donate to support your projects. It's usually used for, more visual mediums like video makers or cartoonists. And a few poets are out there, and Tony has had it a go. And at the very least, he gives you an option to do even a one-time donation for his efforts. And if you're a once a month, I hope to be a once a month contributor once I figure out my expenses for the new house. But if you can visit the website, and if you're a Patreon member, once a month you get exclusive material from the said poets. Rick McIntyre is another one who I can mention off the top of my head that also has a Patreon. If I ever put my foot into the cold, icy waters of the uncaring internet world, I hopefully will have one as well. But Tony's got one as well. I think he was the first that I knew of. And hopefully there'll be a PayPal account that he can also link to, and I can put up on the website. And of course, I'm sure he has Venmo. This guy's a professional. He does everything online now, so we can definitely make it work. And if you can consider donating after the show, I'd appreciate that very much. But we can't have a show until I actually do the introduction. So let's do my favorite part of reading the boilerplate from Mr. Tony Brown before introducing him. Tony Brown has been writing for over 50 years and publishing and performing his own work for over 40. A 7-time Pushcart Prize and 2-time Best in the Net nominee, he has traveled the country, slammed for the Worcester Poets Asylum, and organized and hosted many readings and reading series. His most recent ebooks and publications can be found through his Patreon site, another reason to join. His daily poetry blog is available at radioactiveart.blog. That's a WordPress-based blog, which you can also subscribe to. He resides in Worcester, Massachusetts. He most commonly performs his poetry with the Duende Project in collaboration with Stephen Lanning Cafaro on electric bass and classical guitar, Christopher Lawton on guitar, and Chris O'Donnell on drums. They have released 6 collections of their work available on all the usual online streaming and download outlets. And I can just to testify, I've actually bought one of their albums. I believe the most recent one, at least the most recent one I saw, was, of course I can't find it now. The one thing that scares. That's available on iTunes if you're willing to deal with that devil and buy that stuff. But they also have material on Spotify. Basically, as he said, all the usual online streaming and download outlets. And if you can throw a few bucks and buy a virtual copy, I hope you can. More information can be found at their website, theduendeproject.com, and all these links are available on the Stone Soup Poetry page at stonesoupoetry.blogspot.com, but I'll try and add them on later on after this feature so you can support him. And the best way to support him right now is to put your hands together virtually or otherwise 10 to 15 times. Let's say 30 times. Come on, it's been a while since he's been back, and I owe him such a great debt of gratitude for featuring at Stone Soup almost 10 years ago. I really needed his support from someone like him who understood what it was like, and I appreciate the chapbook he created for that event, which I still have. Enough about me. Here's the guy you came here to see, Mr. Tony Brown.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you very much. So just for everybody's notes, just because first of all, I do have Venmo. I do not remember what my name for my account is because I think I've used it like twice. I threw my PayPal email address into the chat. So if you do want to donate, it's there. There you go. Now, you know, in the Patreon, as he said, it's going to be available different places. I'm really just interested in doing a set for you tonight. I was working on this earlier today, trying to decide what I was going to read. There's old friends in the room between McGee and Chad and Cece. I haven't seen you in ages, and Jeff and Audrey, who I grew up with, and John, who I have not seen, I think, since New London. Am I right? I think that's the last time we actually did anything together as part of the Surviving the Last Few Years poetry anthology series. So let me throw this back in. So I have a weird set tonight. I'm going to start off with something light. I think it's light. Not everybody does. And move through some darker stuff and end up in the light again. So, okay. Here we go. Ready to go. So the first one I think of as light. You may not. It's called Death by Metaphor. This morning, it feels like my heart is knocking against my rib cage. I mean that in all sincerity. Heart in this case is muscle and not metaphor. Rib cage is a common descriptive term for the arrangement of the ribs. Morning is when this is happening. These words should be seen as carrying no figurative weight. I mean to say just what I say. It's morning and it feels like my heart is knocking against my rib cage. Note that I did not say trying to break free from my rib cage. That would be stupid. The heart has no will of its own. It doesn't know freedom, and it's not going to leap from my body, leaving splinters of bone and a huge hole behind it. That would invite metaphor again, and I'm trying to avoid that as my breathing's too shallow to use so much oxygen on creative thought right now. Did I mention my breathing was shallow? Don't assume I meant something else. There's nothing hidden there. My breathing is shallow, mean I'm taking smaller breaths than usual, higher in my chest, more quickly. I could add that they do not expand the rib cage as much as normal breaths. You should get the picture, though I'm not trying to paint one. Just the facts here. I'm wincing with the effort of staying in the moment with the pain in my shoulder. Yes, I'm in pain. For a full description of it, I'm going to have to dip a bit into comparison. Forgive me, it's what we all do. I don't know how else to say it, so it's like something is cutting me at intervals. Sharp pain. We call it that because it explains it to another. We've all felt it. Right now it feels like my left shoulder is being slashed from clavicle to pit. My rod's being shoved in the wound and shoved down my left arm from the inside. That's as accurate as a description, even if it's not a fact. No wonder my breathing's so shallow. No wonder my heart feels like it's knocking on my rib cage. I would feel safe in having you assume that these are the signs of a heart attack, which in itself is a metaphor used to describe a myocardial infarction or some other cardiac event. Heart attack is a bad description, as if the heart were capable of hostilities. It's not attacking me. It's doing what it's supposed to do in response to not taking care of it properly. Fatty foods, no exercise, diabetes, long time, pack-a-day habit. No metaphors there, just facts, though I suck at self-care, contains a metaphor that works even if the sentence makes no objective sense. This morning, then, let's just say that it feels like my heart is knocking against my rib cage. And let's say further that my dumb heart and my rib cage and my arm are in some kind of distress, and as a result, I am too, although I don't know what I means. Who I am, distinct from awareness of my body. If I did, would I be writing this instead of calling the ambulance? If the heart dies, I'm sure I'll find out. No metaphor in that either. I suspect there will be a moment when I will understand the meaning of I if I keep writing instead of calling. I won't come back to tell you about it, though. You'll have to draw conclusions from the poem and the pain and the heart and the dying. You will say, that stupid bastard died writing a poem while his heart was failing. And you'll be correct. I'm sure someone will make that into a metaphor. Though in fact, it isn't. I think it's a light poem. I don't know if everybody else does. I got very tired of people. There was a whole thing, matter of fact, this was a Boston Can Tab thing about mocking the use of the word rib cage in a poem. And so what I did was I wanted to write something where the word rib cage is exactly the only word that you can possibly use, and this is where I ended up, in something about metaphor. So still light, fonts. This goes out to all the people who hate Comic Sans. Some days I mourn and loathe existence more than others, but never more so than when people argue over fonts. In this world, any argument for meaning over appearance is a loser. I do not understand how one may amplify the other, of course. I do understand how one may amplify the other, of course. I'm not a total fool for dismissal of this concern, but I do hold the opinion that there's something wrong here. To me, it sings like Nero's fiddle, but apparently I can't put my finger on it in this font. I would joke that I joke that what I would like to do is go and replace the poison label on every bottle around with the same label except written in Comic Sans, because there are all these people who will not take it seriously if it's written in Comic Sans. So moving on, so to speak. All right, gets a little different here. I wrote an ebook, and they're available through my Patreon and things like that. A few years ago, called Pushpins and Thumbtacks, which was about common symbols in popular culture. And two of the poems contained in that book are drawn from the mythology of the movie of The Wizard of Oz. So I thought I would do both of them for you. And if you detected that I'm moving into the political realm here, well done. First one is called Questioning Oz. We focus on the man behind the curtain, no matter how often we say we should not pay attention to him. Let's talk instead about the machine he's running when the curtain is pulled back. That's a hell of a piece of technology back there. Smoke and projection, and result a terrifying head offering favor and demanding sacrifice. Let's talk about the curtain, too. The most important piece of fabric in all of Oz. Looks pretty plain. The same color as almost everything else in the city. Made to be nondescript, to blend in. Can you recall anything about it other than the request to ignore it? Who's the real wizard here? The bumbling man or the head howling imperiously? Or are the people who hung that curtain more than each of them? If you buy the man's story, all of Emerald City knew he was behind it all along. Do you buy the man's story? Did he build or inherit or improve upon the machine? Who's in charge here? And what do you think we should call the machine? Could we call it magic with a C or magic with a K? Should we call it green supremacy? What do we call the curtain? Should we call it greenness? Should we note that it is the color of the default setting? What does it say that the people of Emerald City did not seem sad to see the wizard go as long as anyone was left in charge to maintain the status quo? It likely took those three less than a week after Dorothy left to step behind the curtain and fire the machine up again. And this time, no black dog appeared to pull back that veil. If you, like me, has been appalled, dismayed, frightened, or concerned about what you have learned about your neighbors over the last 4 years, this next poem is for you. It's called The Flying Monkeys. The flying monkeys flew in from Oz to suburbia and landed just in time for Sunday dinner. Sat there on the neat margins between the sidewalks and the curbs, crouching on the fresh-cut grass, shitting on the blade-savaged dandelions. Did you know that there's a word for that green strip in between? It's called the verge. The flying monkeys were on the verge. That Sunday, jackets, hats, attitudes intact, acting exactly as we'd expect, tails tucked, wings folded, waiting for orders. Down the block from here, someone cracked a screen door and said, "You look hungry. Why don't you come in for a bite?" to the ones perched outside their house. One by one, the monkeys filed inside. The neighborhood was dead quiet. What was going on in there? The monkeys came out hours later, dressed in the clothes of the folks who'd invited them in, who followed the monkeys naked into the streets, who stood passive as they were taken and lifted and carried higher and higher, seeming to rise almost forever until they vanished. Then some among us rushed to proclaim this the rapture at last, while others simply laughed and clapped their hands along with the suddenly welcome flying monkeys and their magical flight plans. And more stripped and flew, and the monkeys took over their empty homes and their jobs and routines. They folded up their wings tight under T-shirts and mowed the lawns and even the verges, sat out sunning themselves in their yards in swimsuits, their tails slung lazily to one side of the lounge chairs or the other. And that's how it's been for a while now. Now and then a distant scream. Now and then decomp on the wind, as if somewhere there's a huge and growing pile of broken bodies in a valley just beyond the verge of sight. Those of us left aren't saying much. There's a lot of monkeys around, and frankly, we can't tell the difference anymore. Not sure who's giving the orders about who flies and who gets flown, who rises and who falls. We fret, we fear, we whisper to each other that old line, "These things must be done delicately," even though it's clear that for the monkeys, that's no longer true. No, they most certainly do not. Leaving Oz. No, thank you. When I wrote that poem, I actually had to go back and look up as to whether the flying monkeys had tails because I couldn't remember. They do. So. All right. A little more serious here. My focus politically, etc., falls into very much a critique of American society from the beginning. That Trump was completely predictable and completely American and not an anomaly. And we'll see him again, and the next one will be suaver and a little more easy to beat up on people. Oppression, a how-to guide. Dog them early while the scent of sulfur builds. Maze the rules they must play by until loopholes become jaws. Stack them till your God approves of the height of the pile. Open their prison doors and pour in hot oil and lingering fame. Approve their paroles in a voice of long chains. Denounce them at the whiff of impure thought. Relegate their romances to the dustbin of hysteria. Imagine them as moldy bread. Bite mincing mouthfuls from them till they spit back, reject their strapping response to infractions. Blow them rat kisses, darken their doorsteps, assume their pleasures for your own, assume their pleasures are your own, burn their books, starve them, own them, remove them from their lands, speak of universal love only when they aren't here to hear, spiel their women for a cabaret of night monkey wars, splay their men's genitals upon a flea market blanket, drown their children in salt, rend their garments, bruise their heels, revise their gods, bivouac where they pray, infiltrate them when they attempt to remake their own worlds, give them names to conceal the names with which they were born, carry a sponge to sop their servant blood from your white loins, blacken their teeth until yours are moonlike in comparison, corner them with caricatures while you shred their portraits, play their music in your nurseries, wear their feathered robes, drop their bastardized secrets on the tiles of your temple, cut off their water, tell them the righteous can live on dew alone, suck their grass dry, watch their tongues get crisp, and then, and only then, let your mercy rain down upon them as a mighty river. Taking a moment here with that one. That one rips my throat pretty good. For the record, that was written during the Iraq War. It has universal applicability as far as I'm concerned in terms of that.
I hate to say something here, Tony, but
No,
for the
please do.
record, that wasn't dark or light. That was air.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Cecil.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
it was.
You can breathe now. Bye.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, all right. So now we get into something personal. Those who know me know that my background is that my father is Mescalero Apache from the reservation in New Mexico, residential school, the whole sordid history. And my mother's Italian, grew up on Federal Hill in Providence before moving to Uxbridge. And nobody looks at me and guesses this. Nobody looks at me and guesses this is my background. So this is called Targets. At 5:45 a.m., I took out the trash and did not startle when a neighbor spoke to me while my back was turned because I am not a target. I watered the container garden when we were done speaking and then sat right down on my own front wall in the high humidity and, in the name of going back to bed and getting more sleep, took a few hits off half a joint and wasn't too worried, though it was full daylight, because I am not a target. I could have been a target. I could have been, but almost in spite of all my handsome paternal ancestors, I passed for white and always have, and thus, regardless of my own thoughts and obsessions, internal maladjustments, to the way my frame doesn't fit my picture, I am not a target. I can live and rage and love out loud because I am not a target. I can walk a street with my eyes set straight upon the eyes of others because I am not a target. I can watch every video of targets and target practice, sit there staring, crying out and raging up and falling out, then turn them off or turn away because I am not a target. No one and everyone knows what's coming. No one and everyone understands what will not stand. No one knows how it will fall. None but the targets understand how that's going to feel. Everyone's going to learn something at the very least, how not to turn away. At the very most, how little it will be, has ever been about them. I went back inside and was ready to sleep until one of my handsome paternal ancestors rode into view right through the floor. And she hovered there, her regalia soaked in blood. She shook her head. She would not look me in the eye. As hard as I wanted to be before her, I could not be hard. I instead fell to the same floor she transcended so easily and saw then how difficult it was going to be if I wanted to claim anything of what I thought myself to be. And when I looked up, she was gone, and the blazing eye of a bull bison hung in her place for a second only before leaving me alone to choose. A little more directly personal. We just passed my least favorite holiday. Columbus Day is its own thing. But Thanksgiving, man, that one's got some issues for me personally. So this is called being neither, being both. Being Indian and white on Thanksgiving means being tired of plowing the 6 weeks of stupid before this day. Tired of explaining. Tired of walking on pilgrim shells. Tired of having to justify marking the day as painful or joyful or neither or both. Being both on Thanksgiving means I get to give myself the ulcer I so richly deserve. Means being hungry in every sense of the word. Means I want to give thanks for something I stole for myself. Or perhaps I did not. Being both on Thanksgiving means nothing is simple. I am thankful for the tightrope, thankful for the mashup problems, thankful for looking like I ought to be oblivious, thankful for a good talking to. Being neither fully on Thanksgiving means I ought to give me a good talking to. I am angry enough to ignore much and fantasize more over the boiled onions only my dad eats and the meat stuffing with chestnuts only my mom eats. Angry enough to lose my appetite in public. Angry enough to be redder than this damned canned cranberry sauce. Being me on Thanksgiving means I sit down to the table and eat like a fat man. Eat a continent's worth of overkill. Filling my dark gut by the fire in the too warm, house of my parents, who are long past caring about anything but making sure that the peace holds till night falls and we all go home, carrying the leftovers with us to feed on for another whole year. Another harvest festival past, no guarantee of one next year. Maybe we'll starve over the winter while being Indian, being white, being neither, being both, being the kind who thinks it matters when you're choking on so many bones. Oh, thank you. Questions, thoughts, comments? I've got like 2 more after this.
Just an amazing
The
set.
day, yeah. Go ahead, Chad.
I was just saying this is an amazing set, but you go ahead, CC.
The day of mourning was live on the internet because of Zoom this year. Did you see that?
I did not. Thanksgiving for me this year was very, very, very odd. And I'm not going to go into more details for that. So I pretty much stayed away from
The National Day of Mourning in Plymouth that they've been doing every year. That
Oh
nobody
no,
knows
I've
about.
attended in the past. I just didn't. I had
The
other
last-
stuff going on.
My last 3 years in Boston before I went to Washington State, I would go down and cook.
Oh,
in the kitchen.
I didn't know you were in Washington. So,
Yeah,
no idea.
that was. I've been back for 10 years. I was in Germany. It's a while, long story.
Gotcha. I had
But
no
anyway, out of all the things I missed in Boston, going there on
The Day of
Thanksgiving
Mourning,
and being no place else, everyone should watch that. I'm just.
Yeah, Richard Cambridge was posting pictures from the day they buried the rock the other day on his feed. So, yeah, I'm familiar with the Day of Mourning.
I think he was the first one to tell me about it, if I recall.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Okay, 2 more. Don't worry, we lighten up a little bit. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, insults?
Don't apologize. Just read them.
I'm not apologizing. I'm just
Tony, you
checking
sound
in.
great.
Thanks,
It's
Mike.
so nice to hear you.
Yeah, always good to hear you too. Even if it's only half the poem, Mike. But you know.
Hey, more like 2/3. More like 2/3.
We wouldn't have known.
I gotta give you shit.
No, I know.
So-
I'm in no way embarrassed or shocked or dismayed in any way whatsoever. I'm very proud of myself. But
I guess I'm being defensive on your behalf then.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I appreciate everybody being embarrassed for me. So it helps.
All right.
Well
here we
done,
go.
Tony. Well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay. Hey, Joe Fusco just showed up. About time for the last 2 poems, Joe. What can I say? He's another Worcester poet, for those of you who don't know him. So, all right. This one is really new, like within the last week or so, but I kind of have felt the need to go here with some of, because I can be really dark, and I can be dark even to me. So here we go with this. Looking for hope. We always bet the world on hope, although it's always been a sort of Icarus with its reclaimed wings and hot glue foundation. We've never had it completely right. We lay ourselves at its feet and stare up into its eyes with love, although we know from its past that it's likely to leave us and soar till it crashes. We spend too many days after that staring at the ocean, imagining we see it, struggling still, calling for us to rescue it, even though each of us points at a different spot and say we are certain this time that we have it right. In spite of all the times that we have found hope's soggy feathers on the shore, all the time we've gone out in boats to where we were sure hope was still afloat and found nothing, we go back to the sea and stare at the horizon, pointing first here, then there, then everywhere, because now and then we get it right. So it's something a little lighter. All right, last piece. And before I dive into this, I wanted to just say it was nice hearing Ethan tonight. For those of you who know me, and Chad mentioned it, most of my time performing poetry now is not solo. I usually am performing with my band, the Duende Project. And Chad, you're about 4 albums behind.
I know I'm playing catch up. That's all.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. Because we started out as a duo, me and fabulous bass player Stephen Lanning Cafaro, better known as Faro, also plays flamenco guitar. And for years it was just me and him, and I would do the poetry and he would perform the music. And then we hooked up with a drummer, and about that same time I started playing guitar. I felt comfortable enough playing guitar because he's a terrifyingly good musician. And now it's a 4-piece band with a guitarist and a full drum set and full kit and bass and electric and sometimes keyboards. And I play guitar and quattro and various other strange instruments at various points. And we perform. We all do all originals. We go out and perform in nightclubs and do that. This was one of the very first pieces that I ever added my own guitar to. I'm not going to play tonight, simply because logistics and sound and stuff like that. I didn't feel like setting all that stuff up. It's very old, and I will preface it the way I always preface it, which is I came up in the days of punk rock. And I have a poem called Punk, which is a loud, noisy piece about joy and triumph and rage and all sorts of things. And then I got this one, which is about the other side of the punk experience. And this is just called, and I will leave you with this, and thank you for listening. Like I said, I left my my PayPal is in the chat. And I'm sure we'll get all the various information up on various Facebook pages and stuff like that. I can never remember the addresses, but thank you all for listening, and I will leave you with this. This is DIY. She burns sage at the root of her favorite tree and calls herself priest, while in town they call her slut and worse, because she dares to love who and what and when she wants. On the nights of the full moon, the men and the women of this town come out and they circle her stucco walls. There's something in there that they need. And out there, in front of the white church, on the green lawn, right under the nose of the fat pastor, she dances without bending a blade of grass. God finds her agreeable. Over there in front of the frat house, 2 men kiss. And the dangerous drunken boys inside see it and decide to do nothing this time. That's a start. 2 have begun to feel comfortable making public their own sacrament of the infinite. And my grandmother sniffs. Elderly is such a spindly word. The legs of that word do not begin to support me. She traded her electric typewriter 2 years ago for a laptop and writes the definitive poetry of our time between the innings of Cubs games. And she will not stop smoking. Ever. Swears that if she gets to heaven to find that the clouds are posted, she will find another place to light up. Friends, beloved friends, the arms of God are nearly endless, but there you hang out at the end of one of them, like a finger on a vast hand. And all that's asked of you is that you touch the earth and transmit what you feel back to the heart. So, make a living, make a life, make love, make art. Adorn this world with the work of your soul, but do it yourself. No one can do it for you. Thank you all.
Let's all applaud that and Garrett's probably even better.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice work.
Fantastic, Tony. Fantastic set.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Great set.
Hope I didn't go too long.
No. Encore, encore.
Yeah,
Oh,
not
jeez.
long at all.
Never
That
enough.
felt just right.
Thank you.
Encore is
Tony, what was the
what's
what was the name of the one with the feathers in it? The one with the feathers.
Oh, Looking for Hope.
Looking for hope.
Hope is the thing with feathers.
I'd love one more if it's everyone Is it okay? Is it too late?
No, I mean, if you guys want one more, I'll dig one more up.
No, this movement so soon. Okay, let's.
Can you do in the time of Corona? Can I throw a request out there if we're gonna go offset here?
Oh, in the time of contagion. If you give
Contagion,
me a
yeah, sorry.
minute, if you give me a minute to look for it, because
Okay.
for those of you who are not aware, I'm working off of an iPad and a Bluetooth page turner. So I have a file set up that I'm where, yeah, this is what you use when you're playing guitar and you need to read lyrics on stage. It turns the pages of your sheet music for you.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Very handy, by the way, very handy. These things are great. So
Wow.
normally it sits on the pedal board, but I just take it off and I have it sitting in front of me and it can go forward or back on the iPad. It's connected to the iPad.
Wow.
So if you give me a minute, I'm sure I can find In the Time of Contagion. Give me a second. Any other questions before we move on?
Maybe it might be a good idea to segue into what else is available on your Patreon, if not just the online collections of book collections. Is there any other? What other surprises? What surprises might there be?
If you come on here. Hang on, everything is disappearing. Wait a minute, I'm almost there, believe it or not. I got it. Okay. I try to do 2 videos a month of just me talking about poetry. I post poems. I post discussions of craft. And I try to do quarterly ebooks, although I got to tell you, this year has been a disaster in keeping up with the rewards and stuff. I try to do quarterly ebooks. I do a once a year best of. So there's a best of all my thing. I just recently did a special offer for the month of November where if you signed up or raised your level of participation, you're going to get mailed a hard copy of a chapbook that I wrote about this time, the pandemic. It's called The Wrong Flowers. And I'm going to do a private reading for those folks, much like this. And I don't know, something else. I'll figure something else out. So maybe a CD from the band or something like that. So
I have a question.
Cool.
What?
I have a question. When you perform with your band, are you doing spoken word or is it all singing?
Spoken word.
It is.
Yeah.
While playing guitar?
I play guitar, yeah. While I'm doing spoken word. Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
I'll play you a few tracks Friday, Ethan.
I have to be honest, and I learned this from a poet who has since passed away, a lovely woman who used to run the Pink Pony readings in New York, a woman named Jackie Sheeler, who also did this. And when I was first learning to play the guitar, and I'm not going to try and pretend like I'm a great guitarist. I'm not. I'm okay. When I first learned to play the guitar and tried to match it up to spoken word, I found it incredibly difficult. And Jackie and I were sitting talking one night in New York. And she said, when I learned to do this, the hard part was understanding that everything that you're doing is coming from the same side is coming from 2 opposite sides of the brain. And you are trying to reconcile left brain work with right brain work at the same time. And so what I found myself doing was really sitting down, and if you look at my pages, they are very much broken up into regular stanzas and stuff because they match up to chord changes and they match up to guitar lines and stuff like that. Now, what's very different is I don't play guitar nonstop in the band. We can do 3 hours a night, no problem. And we do a couple of covers where I do sing. I do Working Class Hero, and what's the other one I do? Oh, we do 3, which is a creepy David Crosby song. We have a horrendous semi-spoken, semi-sung version of Top Gun that is called Danger Zone Threat Level Orange. I'll leave you. Let's just point out that the last line of it is "Shut the fuck up, Donnie. You're out of your element," and we'll leave it like that. I'm going to have to retire that, I think. We'll have to write new lyrics for it or something like that. But for the most part, yeah, it's spoken word. And most of the time I'm not playing guitar, so I'm jamming with the bass player and drummer who are spectacular jazz players. And then the guitarist, our guitarist is an old hardcore punk guy. who plays a lot of blues and hardcore stuff, and I'm more of a fingerstyle. I play fingerstyle, so I play fingerstyle on a Strat or on a semi-hollow epi or something like that. Not a Strat, a Tele. So I mean, we're a conventional 4-piece rock band, except that there's a poet fronting it, which a lot of people look at it and go, "Do you know any Eagles?" And we don't. So, so.
Do you have any YouTube videos that I could?
Yeah, go look up the Duende, Duende project online, and you will find a fair number of videos. Some of our live stuff from a Providence show, and mostly it's Duende. It's a Spanish word, which has multiple meanings. In the world of flamenco, it refers to the spirit of sort of being out on the edge, passionately embraced by a piece of music. It's also sometimes used as a colloquialism to talk about like house imps that cause damage and destruction. Think Dobby, something like that. So, all right, I've got Meeting in the Time of Contagion queued up if you want it. You want
Let's
it?
hear it.
All right, let's go. And this is from an ebook I put out earlier in the year called In the Time of Contagion, which is a group of poems about this moment. But this is Meeting in a Time of Contagion. We talk to each other from across streets and through screens now, slowly becoming acquainted with the low-touch rules. Still, when I see a long-lost friend in a store, someone I thought had moved to Florida decades before, it is natural and innate that we shake hands in the center aisle, and then immediately with regret, we both look at the floor and say, we probably shouldn't have done that. And so the conversation continues for the requisite few minutes of catch-up before we move on to his purchase and my car. Though I stop in the lobby before I go and scrub myself with wipes meant for cart handles and doorknobs. The sting of the sanitizer tearing into the cracked skin on my hands, like the fire of knowing that acknowledging joy and friendship without thought in these days might be fatal to one of us, or to someone we love, or someone we never even meet. Even if we are, as if we are the wings of the metaphorical butterfly who destroys the entire world. As if we have never been this disastrous before all this happened, simply by living our casual consumer lives. Okay, I think I will leave you with that one, so, because I think it matches the national and world mood at the moment. Thank you again. Much appreciated, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And
Thank you, Tony.
I urge you guys to check out the Duende Project. This was one of my little bucket list goals I had before the pandemic started. We had access to 2 places with Stone Soup. We had access to our regular gallery, our new gallery location, which I hope we still have access to after all this is done. And we had access for a time to Dudley Cafe. And now the Dudley Cafe and the newly named Nubian Square is almost is in danger of closing. I don't know what the world's going to look like when all this is blown over, and if it ever does fully. I suspect a lot of things are going to be changing. I talked to a lot of doctors, and a lot of people feel like things might never go back to full normal, but I would like to think that gatherings will happen soon, maybe before Stone Soup turns 50 in May, maybe not. But one of my bucket list goals is to get the Duende Project to perform at Stone Soup at some show in the future, and I would love for that to happen. I always appreciate anytime I hear on the mic. I do remember that DIY poem. That was one of the first chapbooks I bought at the Cantab. So it's a long time ago, and I hope you come back again at some point. And check out his Patreon. I think I'm going to tonight. How expensive could the electric bill be here? In my new.
Hey, you can get in on my Patreon for only $1 a month.
And
I keep it low, so.
And don't knock that either, because I
don't.
I know a lot of people who earn a few thousand a month, and they say a lot of that is from the $1 contributors. So
yeah, I do okay. It's a steady source of income. It's not great, but pays my car payment and a few other things, so that's not a bad thing, you know. So.
That's amazing, and best of luck to you. We're going to end with our penultimate closer, and I appreciate his patience. Before, our penultimate closer was the late Billy of the Barnums. And it's only fitting now that that title I pass on to Bill's very good friend and often creative collaborator, James Van Loy, whose column It's All One Thing is published every Thursday morning at 11 o'clock. It's ready to go tomorrow. And let's bring up Mr. James Van Loy right now.
Right.
So I've got a piece here.
Night, Mary.
Okay. So I've got a piece here called Revelation 3. Revelation 3. In America, politics and angels only meet in Satan, who lives out at the state park, and then shows up late for trick and treat, or worse, when a kitty is killed for a lark. In remote areas, way off the beaten path of personal experiences of the holy divine, in the place right between sensory math and all the categories that we then define with limits of language. And it's just the way we see mom and dad and whatever is fair and foul all wrapped up in those rainbow rays with feathers sticking up in a crazed dare to do what can't be done out there on the run, no place to go. Even so, just look at the schmo who's got a whole party while we've got none, and turns around to talk about what we all owe to them, but most of all to our very own selves, who say over and over again the same refrain. They're both the same. Even as we still delve through all the stories of suffering and pain, the incarcerated masses, life support refugees, homeless horde, pandemic burial ground, abusive relationship, the fatal finality fee, they pretend is free on the ropes in the last round. Nothing ever so different when we're all so stuck with the one that revels in blatant power abuse, the one that never even bothers to give a fuck, and the one that can't even light the fuse. If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. It's lovely down in the woods today, but you better go in disguise, for every bear that ever there was will gather there for certain, because today's the day that teddy bears have their picnic. Every teddy bear who's been good is sure of a treat today. There's lots of marvelous things to eat and wonderful games to play. Beneath the trees where nobody sees, they'll hide and seek as long as they please. Today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic. Picnic time for teddy bears. The little teddy bears are having a lovely time today. Watch them, catch them unaware as they picnic on their holiday. See them gaily gad about. They love to play and shout. They never have any cares. At 6 o'clock, the mummies and daddies will take them home to bed because they're tired little teddy bears. Because they're tired little teddy bears. If you go down in the woods today, you better not go alone. It's lovely down in the woods today, but safer to stay at home. For every bear that ever there was will gather there for certain, because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Loy. And And thanks to everyone who came just to listen. Thanks to everyone who participated in the open mic. Thanks to the old faces. Thanks. This is the first time I've seen John Rush's face, at least live in video. I hope some of you are able to come back. For those of you who are here the first time, I've been doing this every week for a time.
Chad, I have a very special request that I thought of this week, and it's about your writing of your croutons.
Okay.
And you've been doing this for how long?
Since 2015.
So I think you should read the one that you wrote the year before at the end of every stone soup.
Do you mean the year before or the week before?
The week before, like this week last year.
I'm not that categorized. I don't have to categorize that.
Or last week's, but anyway, it was an idea that you read one that's older as a regular thing to close out, because I think they're good. They're interesting. There's an art in what you're doing as the host of Stone Soup by doing this. It's a contribution to the archives of the venue. And I've never heard you read one, and that's just came to mind that maybe there's a way to do that.
Well, I generally find myself the least important person on the open mic, just the one who's keeping things going. But
yeah, you earned your humility. Your humility's been earned. I know. I'm putting it out as a request. Do what you will.
Tom Daly would call it hook humility if I was going on and degrading myself. He'd be like, no more hook humility. But okay, I guess it's appropriate if I read this one this week because it is based on my regular Thanksgiving turned upside down instead of being with my family and stopping us and being part of a super spreader, which thankfully did not happen this year. I was in my new house, and the title of the poem is "Thanksgiving Wars News from the Front." And news from the front is a phrase. It comes actually from a phrase. You're getting the good stuff here. This is a phrase that me and my girlfriend have if we're just reporting on stuff at home, or if one of our friends who lives in the suburbs has all these outrageous stories. I usually preface it, "Oh yeah, she told me this just now. News from the front," and it's just usually overblown stuff. And we've been starting to give news from the front stories, or rather, my girlfriend sending me dispatches from home because she works from home and I do not. So we were starting to do it a lot this past week, so of course I had to make it a subtitle. So this is Thanksgiving Wars News from the Front. It's on my regular blog, Chet Parento, poetforhire.blogspot.com, or just look up my name and it's there. And again, for those who don't know, this is a series of poems that may or may not make sense because I take images, phrases, words from everyone on the open mic that I can, ideally everyone, and then I try to make sense. Just try to give it a sense of a linearity, or at least I know what's going on. Thanksgiving Wars, news from the front. Racist barbers tried to bring back Hitler's mustache, have concentration camps pose for holiday photos. What is the value of mountains if you can't see anyone beneath you? Raise the highland below buildings, everything just tall enough to make them bow. Young eat old, hide evidence, own language. You must kill angels for this year's feast. The dead are not allowed to expatriate themselves from earth, then come back for jobs. Save gratitude when this dying earth has been inherited, sedition against weak. A true man needs a sustainable world like a bee needs a second sting, or a fish needs a bike path, or a whale needs its own blubber, or a suicide needs an incriminating note. The Christmas preparation party will continue until morale or mortality improves. And with that,
Croutons, yeah. It's a great concept.
I think it's best not to turn down a request. Will that be a regular thing? We'll see. But more importantly, thanks you so much again to Tony, and thanks to everyone who participated. Next week's feature is Mr. Philip Curtis. You may know him better as AKA Midnight, who started participating from his home. He found out about our snowsuit through a random Google search, joined in, and he participated, and now he's going to be a feature. He hasn't been on recently in recent weeks because he's had his job, but next week he has off, and I asked him at just the right time where he didn't make any more other plans, and he's very involved in his poetry community. And you'll hear more about that during his feature. You'll read more about it when I post the feature information tomorrow morning. But Philip Curtis, I've been looking to get him as well, and I'm glad we got him, and hopefully we'll have announcements for the rest of the year. I can go all the way up until New Year's week if need be, and I hope some of you join me, if not all of you. Hope all of you check in as we count down to Snowsuit's 50th anniversary on May 1st. 2021. I'm slightly younger than the venue itself, thank God. Not by much, but still. And I want to thank everyone again. I think I thanked everyone 20 times, but great appreciation for Tony Brown. And I hope everyone has a very safe rest of the week and a safe rest of the year. As certain people in power, I won't say who, are going to no doubt lash out like angry children. I hope we can stay away from the blast radius, and I hope the rest of you can stick around with me next year to see what 2021 brings us then. Until then, it's time to do the obligatory wave.
Stay human.
Thank you, Cece. And we will see each other. I hope you all have a great night, and I'm going to stop the recording right now. Show's over. See you next time.
Good night, folks.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks all.